Hello and welcome back. I built a bit more and realized I clicked the wrong button. I am so sorry. So in the last video, I talked about a few things, but one of them at the end that I mentioned was this evangelical sort of review site that was talking about, their own game reviews, and a lot of them were kind of stupid, like saying Dynasty Warriors was bad because it used witchcraft in some of the special moves, or saying that fucking Atelier was bad because it had a cauldron in it. And this is one of those legendary fishing things where I was on Moby Games clicking through random reviews of random games and found this family friendly gamer thing. I think that's what it was called, with just the funniest, weirdest opinion, and it was like catching a coelacanth in the modern day. So there I was perusing the site. I was gonna turn it into a video, but there really isn't, there are a lot of reviews, but sadly the reviews repeat themselves a lot. The structure of a review really does read like it was written by someone who's at least a little bit neurodivergent. Purely because so many of the sites are purely because so many of the reviews, maybe this was a requirement by whoever was running the site and there are multiple reviews, I'm not sure. But the reason why I think that is because every single review just had a giant, maybe not every single, but a lot of them had a giant list of blasphemies, maybe not a giant list of sins they have committed, right? Like Atelier, cauldron, witchcraft, non-traditional role of I think maybe that was one of them, I don't remember. But it was it's that sort of shit, where it's oh yeah, they're just listing off all the sins the game has committed. And I find that really funny, and it was so consistent. I couldn't help but notice it reminded me of, the, those fucking, it's like in DeviantArt or whatever, where somebody would make 50 different OCs, and every single one of them would have a super detailed, at a glance, detailed description, but so many of the descriptions... No, oh fuck. Wrong key. All the descriptions were basically repeating themselves, where it's all the characters are kind of just it's difficult to explain, but you know what I mean. That's the button I was gonna hit. Am I at the correct level? Well, we'll see. And, yeah, close enough. Okay, time to get more stone. And the reason why this site is specifically funny is because making fun of this sort of stuff is always kind of funny, I'll be honest. It's just entertaining to see, because it does take a little bit of brain damage to complain about Atelier, of all things, being blasphemous. It is also kind of funny how they complain in so many JRPGs that religion is criticized, or they enter a church, but it is not specified what religion the church is of. And I remember originally I was reading that and I was thinking to myself, well, what other religion has churches? What? And then I remembered, oh yeah, wait, in America there are these, other Christian denominations that are, from a, non-American perspective, very questionably Christian, and I say that as somebody who's non-religious, because, I don't know, but if I don't know, I feel like there's something a little bit questionable with having, a giant mega church with televangelists. It's, not something I've really seen around these parts, and not something I think a lot of people here would accept as a religion. Because it's a little bit too... It's like the Americanized version of what religion is. In a negative sense, I mean. But, yeah. It is what it is. I do wonder, though, how, like, all of that actually functions in the US, because, like... I've noticed, and this is something which I wasn't aware of until, like, recently, in American politics, you have to lie and say that you are religious. Because if you are not religious, people will genuinely treat you as if you were, like, Jewish in 1930s Germany. They will just assume that you're some kind of evil whatever the fuck. For the simple reason that all the prejudices which still exist, like, which existed back then, still apparently exist in the US. Which is fucking insane to me. Was there a weird noise somewhere here? Or was that my cable? I think it was my cable. Well, if I get eaten by something, you'll see it on tape, so it's fine. But yeah, it is kind of weird talking about this sort of stuff on a fucking YouTube video. But it's one of those things where, like, when times are easy, you know, I think I'll go... how many have I done here? 1, 2... Because I've done 3 internally there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it'll be a 5:7 pillar ratio, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2... Yeah. I'll do a few more. We can do... Well, actually, this could be a decent place for the underground thing, so I can do 2 more, 3 more, we'll see. Because we're actually, if we're at pillar number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7... Oh, actually, yeah, we're at pillar 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That means we can do 2 more pillars. Then we'll be at around 10. But as I was saying, the issue you kind of run into is the fact that, when it's kind of, like, easy, you know? When times are fine, like, anything you talk about sort of in a, like, you know, basically activism is less important the nicer the times are. The times are not nice. The times are very not nice. Have you looked at the news lately? And it's one of those things where I understand some people need their, like, escapism, but I feel like whatever you do, you should still, like... It's the issue of, like, you should still be active and know what's going on. You shouldn't, like, shut yourself out of existing in, like, a sort of politically active sense, even if, like, things seem to be going to shit. Because what you're basically just doing is surrendering and, like, not providing any form of resistance. Because, like, any authoritarian's dream is to have, like, a population who thinks to themselves that, oh, well, it doesn't really matter. I can't do anything. I'll just stay at home and binge watch TikToks all day. Well, that's what they want. And that's something you shouldn't ever give them. Because it's, like, whatever's bad for them is good for you, if that makes sense, you know? Theoretically including the meteor, if you believe in that ending of 1984. Oh. Which, for those who don't know the reference, the idea was that, like, no matter how powerful Ingsoc was, they still can't stop, like, material reality. You know? Like, no matter if the dictator says the harvest has gone fine, and no matter how loudly says, no matter if he, you know, shoots any peasant who brings up the fact the harvest was actually terrible, that is not going to change the fact that people are starving because there's not enough food to go around, you know? And in a similar sort of way, no matter how, no matter how much the like 1984's Ingsoc regime thing, no matter how they try to hide the fact that a meteor is going to hit the Earth and kill everyone there, they can't actually stop the inevitable. And to some of the people in power, that idea is honestly kind of terrifying to them. And I think that's good. Because, knowing that things are inevitable, and that you just can't escape some of this stuff is quite good, in my humble opinion, for them. Because it means they may have to actually, listen. Or maybe not. I don't know. The issue that you're gonna start to run into is every single time money is introduced into politics, politics stops being about even pretending to listen about people. And it's the whole lobbying thing. Why would America, for instance, allow for lobbying? Well, you see, it is because lobbying is good because it makes politicians richer. That's about it. Why, you think it was ever something to do with you? Of course not. And it is kind of funny. I forget where I heard this, or if it was being said, like, in jest or not. But the idea was, oh, if you're unhappy with politics, just lobby your own politician. So, like, you can imagine on one side, it's like concerned citizen, and on the other side, it's like ExxonMobil, who wins. There was recently a case in the US where, like, people unanimously voted and for hours upon hours begged, like, the local council not to allow them to, like, not to allow a big company to build a data center. And then after they agreed to not doing that, they did it anyways and ignored all of the complaints. And then I think either there or in another one, someone left a big ol' note saying no data center and about like 15 bullet holes in the house of one of those like people while they weren't at home. And then some other guy set fire to like entire warehouse because they weren't being paid enough. Like, the entire group of workers weren't being paid enough, so he just said, fuck it. He's gonna commit like 200 million in property damages, and then I think somebody else got killed for like some other thing because some other guy was mad at. I don't know, but it is mildly concerning when it feels like the average person is going more and more in the direction of the law. Well, where wasn't I doing this beforehand? Okay, of like the average person going in the direction of like oh yeah, the law doesn't actually care for me, so I'll take things in my own hands. Because let me tell you, I haven't read too many history books in my time, but I know that that is not a good sign. That is not what you want to see, you know? And the point in time when people are like, okay, the law doesn't really matter anymore, it doesn't care for me, so I will not care for it and do as I wish instead. Like, that is, pretty concerningly close to the breaking point. And, we'll see. One issue is, issue in the sense that, it makes things way more difficult to actually accurately predict, is the fact that, like, as of late, people are extremely lazy, if that makes sense. Like, people are way more inert, people have a lot shorter of an attention span, etc, etc, etc. Yeah, blame TikTok. I wonder why it's being pushed so hard. Well, that's a conspiracy theory for another day, but, like, I don't believe it's true, but I believe, like, I don't believe that it's intentionally being pushed, but I believe that, like, that's partially the reason why it's not really being regulated, at least in the US. I know, like, in the EU, they're trying to do some stuff. I don't know. Generally speaking, though, the problem which we'll run into, and which we'll always run into, is the fact that, how do I explain this? In order to reach, like, the levels of, required to have a society, quote unquote. I mean, you can debate on if that's classified as a society and not, like, just the collapse of humanity. But if you end up having a society, like, the only way you can end up having a society like that of Nazi Germany, or like 1984, where parents are being reported to the police by their own children and vice versa for even thinking wrong, you need, like, some level of mass psychosis to accomplish such a thing. And I just do not believe that these days people really have it in them to do that. Like, yeah, sure, people these days may be, like, more likely to do whatever the fuck. However, I just don't think people really have it in them to have, like, the same level of complete and utter insanity required for, like, regimes like those to successfully survive. Because the only way a regime like that can survive is if people are insane enough to actually, like, report their own neighbors, their own family members, people who've known for years, all because, like, they trust the regime more than they actually trust their own loved ones. And I feel like partially, like, more modern-day individualism has kind of wrecked a lot of the sort of more traditional ways of trying to induce this kind of mass psychosis. Because even with religion these days in places like the US is, like, heavily individualized, while religion everywhere else has been on, like, a very sharp drop-off, you know? So, like, you know, American culture specifically is super, like, individualism-centric in a very sort of fuck you, I got mine sort of way. And I really don't think you could have, like, a regime survive off of the whole, like, performative cruelty that people have and nothing else. I mean, you've seen it with, like, a lot of existing, like, far-right internet influences. The moment anyone who they are, like, supporting gets into power, they're like the dog, like, they act like the dog who finally caught the car, you know? Like, okay, I never thought I'd get this far, what do I do now? And a lot of them end up, like, either fizzling out because they really don't know what to do, or they end up performatively becoming anti-regime or whatever because they now want to drift off of another type of popularity. The reason for all of this is because none of them actually believe in the things they believe in, but, it sort of is what it is. It's tiring, is what it is. But yeah, like, at least we can live in some kind of assurance that, things can't go completely badly, because the very worst people are also too lazy to fuck everything up. Which, I mean, it's not exactly the most positive outlook on everything, but it sure is a lot better than just assuming, you know, ha ha ha, we're all gonna fucking die. Because that's never any fun, is it? And, like, you could argue... Oh, look, it's a rainbow. And, like, you could argue that, things are just gonna get worse and worse and worse, but, like, there have been a lot of times in history that that's been the case. And I don't know. Like, history is really, really difficult to predict. I mean, Fukuyama tried to predict history and failed. But, what's funny is that as much as a lot of people, especially, like, lefties, like to make fun of Fukuyama for quite valid reasons, I feel like there's still, like, parts of what he wrote that are, even if by accident, like, somewhat descriptive of what's happening today. And I think it's kind of interesting. Specifically, what I'm referring to is when Fukuyama said that, like, people will stop having interests in actual, like in actual movements because they'll feel like nothing more can be done. And because of that, they're going to, search for more personal things, like, important to them. And that is going to be what, like, their lives will revolve around. And I feel like you can kind of see that with how a lot of, like, groups have kind of splintered, where you'll have people who are very performatively for or against something, something which, you know, back in the day, you didn't really have. You know, like, fuck, during the Vietnam War or whatever, or, like, what, you know, when times were maybe not as fun, you know, when people were getting drafted to die in a jungle an ocean away in the US, I don't think a lot of people argued over... I guess video games weren't a thing to be argued over back then. But, you know, I don't think enough people really argued over, oh, is this movie actually good or bad? Is this that, you know? The issue we kind of will end up running into soon is that, there's the whole boy cried wolf thing, I think, with a lot of stuff. Like, a lot of the current scapegoats in politics, like, you know, we're reaching a point, I think, where a lot of the current political scapegoats, may it be, like, in Europe, like, immigrants or, like, trans people in the UK and US, and I also guess immigrants as well in the UK and US, but in a sort of different way, which, like, I don't know what they have against Polish people in the UK, but, I guess they really hate them for some reason. Or, like, you know, I do kind of find it funny that people are gonna complain about, like, oh yes, we may have ruined your country with colonialism, but how dare you visit our country and try to have a job and start a family here while giving us tax money. No, I will cry and shit and come. Did I build this incorrectly? I am going to crash out. Hold on. Am I stupid? So this is correct. Right. Huh? Maybe? I'll have to use, yeah, facing 0 degrees. Facing, okay, so PLE 270. Okay. Am I off? I think I'm off by 1 block. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. No. Huh? Wait. What have I done wrong here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Am I stupid? Hold on. I'm gonna switch modes really quickly just to do some math, right? 3, 3. Yeah, no, I did these correctly. Okay. I don't really like using creative mode, but I've recently figured out the hotkey when I was fucking about with stuff. Oh, I'll throw one torch in through the water because I did use one over there. But yeah, oops. I don't know. At the end of the day, I feel like an issue is that, as dumb as politics is, it's always going to be really important. And, like, I understand it's a topic that, a lot of people kind of want to run away from when they hear it. But I feel like in recent times, that's been changing, and I feel like that change is, overall for the better, right? And I know we're seeing a decent chunk of, like, especially stupid younger people show up with really stupid opinions, but I feel like, as this is the first wave of when like a lot of younger people are really getting that politically active. I feel like, you know, it's a necessary consequence of young people in general being kind of dumb, you know? And I feel like we're gonna end up seeing, you know, a rise in general political intelligence after, you know, things settle down a little bit more. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we're gonna have, like, absolutely complete insanity with no end in sight. Who knows? I also just realized I'm pretty sure this is one block off. And at the end of the day, isn't that what really matters? No. I don't know. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Actually, we're good. So, okay, I have to go all the way to the boat. But yeah, it sort of is what it is, you know? Not too sure what you can do about it. I don't know what you even can do about it. But, hey, if you just have a bit of a can-do attitude, surely you can do something, right? At the end of the day, I mean, I have been talking a lot, but, like, the sort of important thing, I feel, is the extremely basic one of just kind of ensuring that you're right now in a situation that is sort of safe and or stable. Like, you know, when it's hurricane season and when the alarms are blaring, you gotta want to have that shelter. Or in the, I guess, case that I'm describing, like, make sure you're not fired right now. I think, like, you know, I think searching the job market right now would be a bad idea. But more than that, I feel like, at least these days, you should just kind of be generally more careful with some online stuff. Purely because this isn't like a NordVPN sponsorship, don't worry. Purely because I feel like these days, things just get kind of weird, right? There was a point in time, like, 10, not 20. Yeah, but, like, there was a point in time back, like, 10, 15 years ago, a little bit longer as well, but at some point I feel like some kind of switch flipped, where, like, the way people saw any kind of online engagement really changed. Because these days, people, like, search for all kinds of weird gotchas. People will do this, do that. And not all of it is necessarily harmful or whatever. I feel like, overall, it is a net benefit that, like, we are seeing more people who've done, like, genuinely awful behavior get called out for that stuff, right? I mean, that's fine. That's good. That's how it should be. But in a similar way, I feel like a lot of the internet has kind of... I don't know why I'm talking about this now, I'll be honest. But, I was thinking about this, right? Because, like, these days, you should just ensure that, like, especially with, like, times being more turbulent and people getting more insane, you should probably ensure that, like, you don't leave too much stuff online, right? Because even if, like, people are more confident in calling out, you know, shitty people online, that has kind of also unfortunately extended to a lot of people who've done genuinely nothing wrong in first being branded as, like, evil by bad faith actors, and then also by, you know, the idiots who kind of go along with it. And it's a shame. It's even more shameful that you can't do anything about it. But it is what it is. The only real solution, as it was said in that you know what was said in that one movie, right? A Strange Game. The only winning move is not to play. In some ways, yeah. But sometimes it is important. Like, you have examples of, like, internet grifter culture. You see this in video games and such, where there are people who've made entire careers off of talking about how, like, a game is bad because ooga booga woman or whatever else. And, it's kind of annoying because, like, there is a place on YouTube for YouTubers whose entire thing is going channel by channel. They're like, oh, what is Chudman58 doing today? Oh, he made another video complaining about Concord, a game that's been dead for nearly a year. Let's make a video where I make fun of him. I feel like this kind of content can be quite successful on YouTube. If you like, especially if you have a sexy voice and have things to add. But yeah, it's kind of this sort of like pig mud thing where like you don't want to jump, like, only some people who, like, you know, not everybody is built to jump into the mud and wrestle with pigs, you know? That's what the farmer is for. He, you know, that's basically half his job, you know? Um, yeah, and also, like, I think it's kind of funny how if you have, like, a voice which is, like, kind of like, you know, deeply masculine, deeply, like, sort of sexy in that sort of way, if you know the kind of voice I'm talking about, you know, I think, like, you can do an extremely good job basically just making videos where you're critical of, like, those kinds of, like, chud takes, purely because, like, it's kind of like how there's this game online, especially with, like, what is it called again? Like the Manosphere? Like, you know, those kinds of things. Where, it's a game of masculinity chicken, where, you have to, like, it's a fight to discover who's more masculine, and you do it by doing stupider and stupider shit until somebody, like, fucking, in some cases, literally dies. And it's kind of funny, because, I remember reading this really, like, snarky post that I can't exactly disagree with that said, like, that masculinity is inherently submissive because, like, it requires, like, the stronger male or whatever. And I wouldn't necessarily agree with a lot of that, but I find the sentiment is at least kind of correct. Because, in a lot of the sort of man circles, like in a lot of the sort of chud circles, where being a man doesn't mean, like, lifting up the big log so that, you know, a mom and the children she's driving to school can, you know, pass down the road. No, that's not masculinity. It's maxing out your value by doing fucking steroids or something. I don't know. And I find, like, in that specific sphere, being, like, a super masculine guy, at least with your voice, can actually, like, really piss them off in a way that someone doing that, like, that a normal person can't. The only other person who can get, like, the only other type of person who can make these people mad at even, like, a vaguely similar level is a white woman. And that is because every single white woman who these kinds of people see reminds them of their English teacher who they hate, and reminds them of, like, the high school crush that rejected them or whatever. And yeah, maybe the whole meh shallow thing has something about it, but it's not just men. Which I find the funniest thing, because a lot of the same toxic masculinity shit that you see online, where, like, people try to, like, literally ruin their body with, like, steroids in order to, like, impress other men, or, like, break their jaws with hammers to, mew on other men. I don't know. Like, that sort of stuff. It is kind of funny, but it's not, like, a male-centric thing, you know? I feel like a lot of it just kind of comes down to, like, the idea that you have to fit in. It's this one, isn't it? This one seems longer. Huh. well, between the next episode and this one, I'm going to, fix this. Well, that's a funny way to end it. Okay, whatever. Fuck! See you next time. Goodbye.